All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Denis Washira, and it's 8 uh, and 3 minutes past. It's 3 minutes past 8, and I'm glad to be part of this session. So we'll be starting in a few moments. So let's wait for some others to join. So Kaidri, you can share the meeting with your fellow students, and we have a great session about .NET. So let's give some more minutes, like 3 to 4 minutes, share the meeting link with your friend and let them join. All right, so let somebody confirm that I'm audible enough and you can be able to see my screen. Anyone to confirm that I'm audible, please? All right, so good evening once again. It's 8 minutes past 8 p.m. and I believe you are good. And can somebody confirm that I'm audible and the screen is visible? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible and you can see your screen.
Okay. So we might get started as we wait. The rest will join as we continue with the session. Uh, Share the session with your friends so that you can have a great session together. So welcome. My name is Denis Washira. Fourth year doing computer science from Kirinyaga University and also a Microsoft Learn student ambassador. So welcome to this event. It's .NET Conf 2024, Kirinyaga University. So we'll be revolving around the release of .NET 9. We'll be able to explore some of the features that came with .NET 9 and its ecosystem and the rest. So let's get started. So these are little bit profile about myself. You can always find me on Twitter or X at Dennis Washira underscore or LinkedIn, which is Dennis Washira, and also GitHub as Dennis Washira. Um, and what we want to get started with is C Sharp and the ecosystem. And first thing is where can you get C Sharp, the .NET SDK, the latest release? It's on this link, aka.ms get.net9. If you click this link, you'll be able to access this the latest .NET 9, and I will be able to download. It's around 100 and around 210 MBs, so it might take time to download. So make sure you have a good internet so that you can have a smooth download. And let's get uh, just a little bit. Let me just a minute. Sorry for that. Let's go on. You're about to define and know what is .NET, and in a simple term, .NET is an open source developer platform where it's just a toolkit for building apps. Yeah, and that's what we are just trying to explain. Like it's a toolkit for building um, apps on the C# ecosystem. And which language can you use .NET with? So we have three main languages, which is C#. We have another language called F#, and the other one is Visual Basics, which is VB. And some of the tools you can use to build to use .NET is the Visual Studio. And then we have the VS Code, which is called like now the Visual Studio Code, and also you can use the CLI, the command line interface. And .NET can run on any platform, the three platform, which is Windows, Linux, and OS, Mac OS. And some of the tools that .NET supports, like Nuggets, will be able to see and have a look of those tools, GitHub, and also the components like library headers. You'll be able to see all these um, tools once we open the .NET on the VS Code or the Visual Studio. And what can you build with .NET? And with .NET, you can build anything like from cloud applications like Outlook. It's a cloud application that's running on the cloud. So you can be able to use .NET to build such application. The other one is web applications. So you may want to build a website and such things. So you use a framework in C# in the .NET ecosystem called Blazor framework, and that's what we'll be focusing more today, the Blazor. So we'll be able to have a to-do web app using the Blazor framework from the C# ecosystem. Then you can be able to create desktop applications like the Outlook for desktop and other applications. Then also you'll be able to create mobile application. You can be able to create um, games using the Unity platform. Then IoT, these are the Internet of Things, and also able to create some AI application using this .NET SDK. And some of the tracks that you can create using this .NET, one is in the field of AI. So you'll be able to create your own assistant with AI using the .NET. So there was a release of Open AI SDK for .NET. We will have an explore to look with data. Then we have what I've talked about the web development using the minimalistic APIs, and also it's a perfect match for building web application using the Blazor and Azure OpenAI. Then the next is a mobile application. So you'll be able to create mobile and a desktop application with the .NET with ease, with the framework that .NET is coming up with, like a Blazor. We have the .Maui, which is a cross-platform framework where you will be able to create a mobile application. Like you'll be able to build application, and when you build that application, you just use one or two commands to convert it from mobile application Mac OS application, or maybe applications that can run on Linux. And finally is game development. So most of games they run on the .NET backend. Mostly like even drones, you use the .NET language to build your application. And what I want to biggest question is what is C sharp? And mostly it's pronounced as C sharp. It is a modern object-oriented language and type-safe programming language. And it enables developers to build many types of secure and robust applications that run on .NET. We have looked at so many types of applications that you can be able to build on .NET platform. And .NET, it is a cross-platform and open source developer platform for building these different type of application. So .NET is a developer platform, but C Sharp is a language that enables you developer to build this application under this .NET SDK, the software development kit. And simple syntax of C Sharp. So it's simple and modern, which is object oriented language. And mostly we say like you have to implicitly type your it's a type safe programming language, and it roots in the C family language that makes C immediately familiar to C. So if you are familiar with C, C++, and Java, knowing C Sharp will be so easy. So these are just a simple uh, C sharp code where you have an array of names, where you have Anne, Felipe, and Emilia. Then you are trying to rope those names and trying to output those on a console app. Then we talked about the three languages that are under .NET. So we have C sharp, then we have F sharp. So it's also a programming language that make easy to write succinct and robust and pro format code. And it's kind of similar to C sharp, but a little bit syntax. It has a different syntax on it. Like you can see on C sharp, we use console when you're creating a console app, but on F sharp, you use like something like print event to print something on a console or website. Then we have the Visual Basic. This is another language that is under the .NET ecosystem, and now revolving through these three languages. C Sharp is now the boundary known language under these three languages that are under .NET language, .NET ecosystem. And one big question is why C Sharp? And just a simple answer to that is C Sharp is modern. It's managed by one of the top tech companies in the world, which is Microsoft. So it has a large dev community that are able to manage these projects. And it's one of the top programming languages on GitHub. So if you run some statistics on GitHub, you'll be able to see like C Sharp is on top 5. And if you're familiar with C++ and Java, it will be a walkover to use using C Sharp in your code. And with C Sharp, we said you can build anything from desktop, web application, cloud, and game. IoT, and AI. And we might need to look a little bit of architecture of how .NET commonly runs or compiles your code to machine language. So you may see like at topmost level here, these are the languages, and each language has its own compiler. Like a C sharp, we have a C sharp compiler. If it's F sharp, we have a F sharp compiler. And then on Visual Basic Code, we have the VB compiler. So under that, there is a common language runtime, which is the CLR, which is the execution engine that handles the running application. And it provides the service like threading, management, garbage collection, and the type safety. So these are what we are talking about, the CLR. So, and as we said, this language are object oriented. So your code needs to be compiled to a machine readable language, which is now zeros and ones, so that the machine can be able to understand your code and output whatever you are trying to build. So these are just a little bit architecture of how .NET framework works, or how it takes your code, interpret it, compile it, and gives back an executable file, which now you'll be able to see your output of your project. And the three uh, two tools that you can use to build application using C# or .NET application. So we have the Visual Studio and the VS Code. So all these are open source, but Visual Studio, we have a version which is a community version, which is free for everyone, but we have other enterprise, which is a paid version, which has more features and the collaborative features. And then you have the Visual Studio for Mac. We'll be able to download this and have them on our machine and be able to create some of the just a simple web application using the Blazor framework under the .NET ecosystem. So yeah, the .NET, as we saying, it's free, cross-platform, and open source. So you should not pay anything to download the .NET SDK to install it, and you'll be able to get started on building your web applications. So API, and also the real-time communication between the server and client, and also the microservice architecture. So the term microservice architecture is where you have your project breaking down into smaller modules that are independent. So in such a way, like each module is independent. Maybe in one way or the other, while that module fails, it will not be able to affect other modules, and it will leave the project running as normal, like without any interference with other applications. So microservice architecture, it's one of the most approach most of the companies are employing this time, where now you are building your application in modules, so that you can be able to have your services running on each independently to avoid out of service whenever like one module is down. And so these are just explanation of the Blazor framework, which is under the .NET ecosystem, and we will be able to have demo on .NET Blazor framework and be able to create just a web application about this. So these are just explanation like the way the application work. We have the MVC model where you use to decouple your interface, where it's the view. Then we have the model, so this the data, then the application logic where the controller lies on. And ASP.NET has built-in support for this pattern, which is making easier to follow in most of the design pattern when creating your application. Then you can build REST APIs on any platform with C Sharp. Like last week, you were able to see Brian being able to create an ASP web app API using the .NET. And it was a cool thing and a feature that's coming. It's being maintained and being adding more features with any release that Microsoft and .NET Foundation is doing to make sure like the .NET is growing and growing and growing. And the microservice architecture, I talked about it. It's the design pattern, so in which the application is composed into small independent modules that communicate with each other using the well-defined contract. And each microservice focus on each um, single concept. And the why the microservice architecture, so it's easier to develop and test, and also to deploy the isolated parts of your application. And once the deploying, each microservice can be independently scaled as needed. And the other one is microservice and containers. It's combine an app plus configuration and its dependencies into a single independently deployable module or unit. So containers are excellent fit for this bundling and deploying this microservice architecture. So these are how you have your microservice, and then you connect it with your Docker containers and deploy your modules independently, such things. And right now, we want now to be able to install Visual Studio or the uh, editor, which is Visual Studio Code by AKA code VS Code. And Visual Studio, it's IDE, the primary editor used by the C Sharp language to code. And when I say IDE, it's the integrated development environment. And you can get it under this link, which is Visual Studio microsoft.com/download, and you'll be able to download this Visual Studio 2022. And we have the community version, professional version, and enterprise. So community is free, and the other ones are you can try it for free. Then later on you can be able to purchase a license of this one of them. Then if you are not, the IDE requires some more computing power of your machine. So if your machine cannot, it's I think it has less than 8 GB of RAM, might require, it might be get troubles when you try to run Visual Studio. So it's always recommendable if your machine cannot run the IDE, there is always an option, which is now the IDE, the VS Code, the C Sharp Dev Kit extension that is used by most of the VS Code developers. So if you have your VS Code, you are good to go to get started with C Sharp. The only thing you need to have is this C Sharp Dev Kit extension installed in your VS Code. And for instance, for this demo purpose, we use the VS Code and we use this C# dev kit in our machine so that we can be able to run our project. And up to that, let's jump into the demo and try to see some of features that came in with the .NET 9. And we try to build something with a Blazor framework, which is under .NET ecosystem, and it's used for building web applications. So as I open my VS Code, any question after that or any clarification? Any question as we continue? So let's continue. Make sure you have .NET 9 installed in your machine. So if you open your browser and you write .NET download, you'll be able to see the official website for .NET, and you can now download the latest version of .NET, which is version 9, which was released some weeks ago. So let's wait for that page to load. Yeah, you can see we have .NET 9, which is now the standard term support. You can download it. This according to your specification of your machine. So most of our machine is a times 64 architecture, bit 64-bit architecture. So by default, is most of our machine can run on this .NET 9. You can see some of the features that comes with. You can see that you can be able to create web app applications for any platform, then mobile application, cloud, and the rest. So you can use the Visual Studio, which is the IDE, which is now the fully feature and integrated development IDE. And we saying that it's heavy to boot this editor. So for this time, we use the VS Code, which is now the lightweight editor, and you only need to install this C# dev kit in our machine, in our VS Code. So if I open my VS Code, so this is my VS Code, and you go over to extensions, and you search for C# dev kit. So I don't know, my internet might be slow, but under C# under the extension tab, you'll be able to search and see this C# dev kit toolkit for VS Code. It is the most convenient way to run your code on VS Code instead of the Visual Studio, which is heavy. If your machine cannot handle that, so VS Code is your top choice for this. So once you download .NET, you just need to follow some of a simple step while installing it. So for instance, for me, I installed it, and if I want to confirm whether .NET 9 was installed successfully, I just need to open my terminal. So let me open my terminal. So is my screen still visible, Brian?
Yes, I can see your screen very well.
Okay. So I want to know the version of .NET that was installed in my machine since I downloaded .NET 9. So I just use the keyword .NET. Then I'm checking the version of my uh, .NET which was installed. So it's .NET version, and you can see I have .NET 9 installed successfully in my machine. So, as I was starting this meeting, I think like we explore Blazor uh, framework, which is under .NET ecosystem. And if I go over to an official documentation about Blazor on Run Microsoft website, I like using that website for my some of documentation about some languages and steps. So let me open this module about building your first Blazor web app application with Blazor. And you can see like it's the prerequisites. So you only need to have some knowledge about Blazor and how it works, which is a beginner level. Then some basics about the web application. So most of you I know like maybe you have built a website using JavaScript. This might it will be just easy. Then have some little a bit of C sharp, and we have been running C sharp series, so I'm sure most of people who have joined this call, they are familiar with some C sharp concepts like variable naming, functions, classes, objects, such things, and things like generics and interfaces. So these are just a free beginner friendly module you can be able to run and able to build your first Blazor web application. So if I go um, next to the to that module, so let me open this link. I'll share these links later. So build your application with this build a web app with the Blazor. So let me start this run module. Mhm. So just a minute. Just a minute. I open the correct run module for Blazor application using the run website. So if I click now this start button, you'll be able to have a simple introduction about the Blazor. And a simple introduction, you can see like we have like a building web application can be complex effort, and choosing the right web framework for your web development project is an important first step. And Blazor, it's a complete front-end web framework based on the solid foundation of .NET that make it is easy building web application easier and more productive. And this is just a little explanation. Then a scenario like where like imagine you are preparing to launch a new web application for your pizza shop that allows customer to easily select the collection from fresh pizza special, then customize it. Customer should have a clear path. So this is just a simple pizza website that is built using the Blazor language framework. So the next, it's about what is Blazor. So it's a modern framework. It is based on HTML and CSS. Then the C# that help you build your application faster. And some of the benefits, so it is a web UI. It has some reusable components. For React developers, you know what's the importance of component. Then ditch interactivity with the C#, one development stack, where your entire application from front end to back end using the single development stack like HTML and C#, and you are done with your front end and back end at the same time. Then we have the server and the client rendering. We have the progressive server rendering. So these are some of the benefits why you use Blazor to build your web application, and just a little bit of how Blazor works. And Blazor, it's built from component, and Blazor, it's reusable piece of web UI. And this component encapsulates both the rendering and UI events handling the logics. And this it includes some of built-in components like handling form handling, user input validation, some of displaying large dataset, some modernization and authentication. And it uses some standard web technology, which is now a mixture of HTML, CSS, and C#, as I said. And Eraser, it's a file that contains the HTML and C# to define any rendering logic, like codation. So a Razor file contains the HTML, then the C#, it is where now you define your rendering logic, like conditions, control flow, expression, fetching data from the API, something you include under the C# code. Then anything you want to display on a website on the web, you use the HTML and his CSS. So, and because Blazor is a component outland, so Blazor are just C# classes. You just need to call them, and .NET code will run from this component. And you can see some of the UI, event handling, and data binding. So it's one of the most concept that is used in Blazor to have an interactive web application. And this is just an example of a Razor file. So in Razor framework, any file is called Razor file. So under that Razor file, we have just an HTML tag, which is a H1 counter. Then we have a P tag that has a row of status that is displaying the current count, which is now use this at, we shall be able to see the function of this at on any variable or on any function you are calling under your code. So as I said, like the Razor file consists of your HTML. So it contains what you want to display on your website. Then the C sharp part, it's now where the logic is, like the conditions, the control structure, your method. So they include on this C sharp code. Then some of the server and client rendering. So I'll share this documentation later. So I want to rush through this documentation so that you can start and build a simple to-do app using the Blazor framework. And some of the question when to use Blazor. So consider using Blazor for development if of these four reasons uh, met. Like if you are looking for a highly productive full stack web development, then you need to deliver your application quickly without the need of a separate front-end development team. Then if you're already using .NET, then why go to other front-end framework, whereas you can utilize the Blazor framework, which is under .NET ecosystem. Then if you need high performance and highly scalable backend to power your web application. So sometimes one language might not fit or have that capability of giving you the the solution you want. And these are some of the things like when not to use your browser. And one of them is when you need to optimize the download size and the load time of your application on the client side. So this browser, it mostly a server-side rendering framework, so it might take some time to load your to load on the web. So if you want an application that you want to have less time on load time, Blazor might not be your top choice. Then if you want to integrate with highly different framework, this would work well with the Blazor, so it might not be your best solution. Then if you want to support web browsers that do not support the modern web. So this is also another reason not Blazor not good fit if you want to have like older web browsers that do not support the modern web application. Remember, Blazor is built on latest technology, so some of the web browsers might not be able to run your application. And that's it for what is Blazor. So let's go on to some of the or now how we can be able to create a to-do list using Blazor. So let me start this module. So you can take note of this. So I'm using the Microsoft Learn website. So we just need some a little bit of explanation about the data binding and the event. So rendering express values on C Sharp. So when you want to render values on C Sharp expression in the razor file, you use the leading, the add character. Remember I talked about the add character. So for any variable you want to render on C Sharp, you need to use this character. Like this, an example of what I'm talking about. Like you have a variable that you want to display the current count. Like if we are in on React, like when you are using the use state and you want to display the count, so you need to use add in every variable you want to display the value of that on the website. So at all time, like from now, like any variable on Blazor framework, you need to use add so that you can be able to display your value on component. And you might do it on both two ways, which is now just add then the name of that variable, or the other one it's like you typically figure out C# expression ends, but you can also express it about the beginning. So you can use this or use this at then the parentheses. You indicate your variable you want to display there. Then the other one is about control flows like if, do while, for loop. So you can add control flow in your component, rendering the logics. So anytime you want now to have a control flow in your Blazor file, you need now to use this the same character at the start of the control flow. So if we are like the control statement like if, so I need to say like at if, then the condition, then you render what the HTML you want to render. And the same thing when you want to loop things on a list or an ordered. Like I have an ordered list, then at for each I want to render items at items, then under that I want to render like an object. So under that object, then I use the same character which is at. Then the access the dot. I use the dot to access the variable or the key I want to access on that item. So keep note of this. Add this character is most important when using the Blazor framework. So anytime you want to display or to render a value, you need to use add. If you want to use a condition or control flow at the beginning of that control, you need to use add. And that is about Blazor. The same on handling events. So on handling event is the same thing. So like on button, we have on click function. So you just need to use now add on. So you just need to use the same character, then on click. It might be quite challenging if you're coming from a JavaScript perspective where you use the camel case or Pascal case naming convention. So under C# when now we have some functions like the button has some inbuilt function like on click. So on Blazor, you use add on without now the camel case on click function, then the function name you want to call that button. So this is an example of it here. So I have an input that has an onChange function, and under that input, I have a p tag, and I want just to display the message that will be targeting on this input. Then, and at our C# code, that's where now the logic is. So we are defining the variable, which is the message. We are initializing it with the empty value. Then we have our functions, which is now the input changed. Then we are targeting the value of that input. Then we are just displaying that message, which is of type string, and we are targeting the value. So under this now, the code will be able now to display this message on this p tag, and able now to target that message using the onChange function under this input. Then we have some other capabilities on Blazor, which is data binding. And data binding, so often you want to the value in the UI element to be bound to a particular value in your code. And when the value of the UI element changes, the code value should change. And when the code value change, the UI element should display the new value. So Blazor's data binding support makes it easy to set up this site of like two-way data binding. And the simple way to use is just the same character, then the keyword bind. And like, for instance, this is now an example of now using the bind. Like under this input tag, I just need to include at byte, then the type of the variable I'm creating here, which is now this text. So under this button, when now I click this button, I have a callback function that is displaying, like it is calling this text variable. Kindly, if you join the meeting, you can mute. Yeah, thank you. So I was talking about data binding, and so when I click this button, I'll be able now to use this bind to display the text that will be, maybe you have tracked, yeah, you have been targeting on this input, and when I click clear, the bind. Okay, so when I use now the byte, you can see this explanation here. So when you use the change value of the input, the text field is updated with a new value. So when I type something on this input, the string templates, like the bind, will be able to track anything that I'm typing and be able to display that value. And when you change the value of this text by clicking like clear me, the button, the value of the input will be also cleared. So it's a two-way data binding. It is able to track anything like the changes of this input and display the new value. And when I click clear, it's able to use the bind in functionality, be able to clear the text and display like nothing was like to clear the value that was being targeted by that input. So, and these are some of the razor directives, so keywords. So like at page, so it's a keyword. This symbolizes like pages. Like if you want to define some pages, remember it's a web application. So at pages, it's a keyword that's it's a reserved one. Then code. So code, it's specifically to indicate where your C# code is being written. So at topmost, you have your HTML and CSS. Then you use the at code keyword to indicate your C# code or the logic or the control flow. And then if you want to have more some syntax, syntax, this is the best documentation you can use to be able to have some syntax about the razor. Then interactivity, so to handle UI events, use this at the render mode. Then you have the interactive server, which is now the like this, the UI event from the component and use data binding, the component must be interactive. So by default, the Blazor component renders statically from the server. So which means they generate HTML in response to requests as otherwise unable to handle events. So you make a component by applying an interactive render mode using the render mode directive. So you just need to import this at the top of your razor file, and your component will be able to be interactive whenever now you use at data binding, which is now the at bind directive. So let me now try to have a simple to-do app with less than like 10 or 15 minutes, and you'll be done. So first thing you need to do, I always like starting my work on an empty folder. So let me create an empty folder here. So which is now I call it um, Blazor demo. Then I open that folder, and inside it, I like using terminal. So I open a terminal, and my terminal is open. So I hope you are following. And when my terminal is open, I want to create now a new Blazor project. I mean the web application. So there is a keyword to do this. So I use the keyword, remember we are using .NET. So .NET keyword. Then I want a new Blazor web assembly application. Then the fragment n, the name of my Blazor application. So I'm on a new folder, so I might decide to have another folder in this folder. So I want to call my application like Blazor web app, maybe demo. So to make it a demo. So if I click now, okay, .NET SDK will help me creating a new Blazor web application. So it might take a couple of seconds to create that application. Remember, it's a framework, so it has some libraries to install and download from the Blazor WebAssembly. So if I now do ls, I'll be able to see like I have a new folder under the new folder I created. So I need to navigate to that folder, which is now Blazor web app application. And if I do now ls, I'll be able to see I have some bunch of files under this. So these are all project now of Blazor application. So let me open this now application with VS Code. So I use the keyword code, then dot, to open VS Code instance on this application. And my VS Code is open. So let me cross some files here. Yeah, and this is my VS Code, and we have a project here. And to get now the full experience of an IDE, it's always advisable you use the Solution Explorer and VS Code. So let's wait some few seconds for the VS Code to boot up fully, so that we can be able to have a Solution Explorer and this. So as that is being booting up, let me continue and have some so this is the command I used to like these the steps I'm following. So like creating a to-do list. So the first thing is to create a new Blazor web application. Give you the like I use the .NET new, then the name of my Blazor web application. Then the second step is to add a to-do Blazor file on the component. So we shall be able to see that when the VS Code is fully yeah. So let me the VS Code is ready. Let me put it over on this screen. Yeah. So under this, So this is a File Explorer. So it's always advisable to use this Solution Explorer to get the full experience of a Visual Studio IDE experience. So I want to open my application using now the Solution Explorer. And now under this namespace, which is now Blazor Web App Demo, I will have my Blazor project. And so of course, program.cs is now our entry point of our application. You can see like we are having like it's importing some of our libraries from .NET ESP core. Then we are wrapping our application, and under this we are creating a URL that will be able now to spin up our project whenever now we run this project. Now, and what? Razor is some of the adoring, like if that page is not found, to be able like to say like you are the address you are trying to access it's not applicable. This like an error component in React found, but you are not in React for now, so you are in .NET. So and pages. So I hope my VS Code is visible enough. So let me zoom one more. So under pages, you can see like we have 3 pages by default, which now comes when you create a new Blazor application. So the first thing is home page, like the home page, like just a home page where like it has a H1 title, which is Hello World, and welcome to your new application. Now, this is the page title, this is the page title. Then remember the Blazor keyword directives like at pages. It is used to define your pages. And by this, it's showing like this the home page, like the index page of this application. So whenever we use now .NET pure run command, is now the page that will be rendered on the website, on the browser. Then we have other 2 pages, which is now the first one is counter. So under counter, you can access under /counter, then an HTML, a p tag there, a button, then the C# code, which is now under the C# under the @code directive, now where you are defining your logic. The same with the weather razor file. So it's under /weather, then page title, then just p tag, then remember this is a control structure. So at if forecast is null, like this is the loading state whenever you are, remember this weather data you are trying to get. So we need a loading state so that it can be an async and wait functionality. Then under that we have a table. So table, we have some table end. Then under table body, we have the date, temperature, and the summary of that data. Then at the top, at the bottom, we have now the code, the C# code, where now we are defining some variable, where now it's where the forecast, which is an array, and we are defining an async task, which is on initialize, which is now be able to fetch our data for weather, which is from this directive, with the sample data /weather JSON. Then we have some class, which is now for the forecast, and it's having some the 4 variables, which is now we are using now to display them on our table, which is now it has some getters and setters. So I know the previous lessons we were able to get to know what is a getter and a setter. So the getter, to get the value, then the setter, it's set a value to this variable name here. Then the same with this setter, set a value to this variable, and how and on. So this is about the pages. Then under layout. So under layout, we have two main files there, the laser files. So we have the main layout, just a sidebar where it has some nav menu, then the body. So under the nav menu, we have this an HTML tags here, where we have now the side menu, where we have now the home, we have the counter. So this one menu link, I mean nav item. There's another one. There's another one, and under that we have some C# code. So remember I said like Blazor, it's a combination of HTML, CSS, and C#. So HTML, CSS is what's being displayed on the web. Then the C# code is where the logic, the control, such things are done on the C# part. So I want to run this Blazor application. So under this, I'll open my terminal. So there are three ways of opening a terminal. You can go over here and open a new terminal, or use this shortcut here, which is terminal, which is the second icon here. And if I click it, I'll open terminal over there. So you can see now I've opened a terminal under this project. So I will use now the .NET run keyword to start this my Blazor application. So let me use .NET run, then some building it's occurring on the background. Remember, it's an object-oriented language. You need to build your project and run your projects. So even if you use .NET run, by default, C# will try to build your project first, then it will run your project if it has no errors. So as that is while the project is being built and compiled. So let's go back to our documentation and have some what next. So under our so this is the second step we are getting here. So under to do, raise a file to the component pages folder. So you may use the command or just use the graphical user interface to do this. So let me go back to the VS Code. So the project is being compiled yet. So what it's saying, I'm being told to go to this page, then add a file here. So yeah, you can see the project, it's running on port 5235. So let me open that. So I click Control, then that ring. Yeah, so you can see on port 5235, something is being exposed there, which is now our Blazor application. It's loading. Then up, we have a Blazor application, which is now just a row out. Welcome to your new app. Remember, this is the default, the index file, like the page that is being displayed. Then we have our counter here. So the counter is just the counter that has an input, and it is using now the bind to update the current value of this variable count whenever I click count. Then we have now the weather tab, where you are displaying the weather data on this application. So this the initial project, or like the initial startup of Blazor application. So we want now to add a new tab here, which is now the to do list. Under this tab, then we try to create the input of to click an hand and to do something there, then have the display some of the to-do list under that. So, and these pages. So I want to add a new file under this. So the simple way is now to click this add file. Then remember we are under eraser. So you need to choose a eraser page. So eraser page, you need to choose this because you are adding a page. So it's eraser page. Then what's the name of this page? So it's to do dot eraser. So Blazor files are saved by a .razor extension. So let's add that. You can see. Oh, sorry, we have. I don't know what we have created. Let me add again. So click that. So there's a component. Let me see. Do dot razor. Yeah, it's you should add a razor component, not pinch. So let me delete this. Then under now our razor file, we have just an introduction of an H3 tag, which is to do, then the initial part of where now our C# code will go inside this curly braces here. And the next instruction is what? So where is that documentation? Or this one. So the next, so once you want a page, so you need to, we have added a component, then you want to add page. It is a directive at the top of this file, so that in our relative URL, we can be able to access this at /to-do. Then set the render to this mode. So on .NET 9, you don't need to now to indicate like the interactive server. So by default, you don't need by default now the C# will be able to add some interactive way of your project. So you don't need to import this on .NET 9. So those are some of the cool features that came with .NET 9. But on previous like .NET 8, you need to implicitly indicate in your component, like you need some render mode of interactive server. So under now, so under my new file, so let me see whether I can have those things. So under one screen, yeah. So the instruction is I need to add at page this application. So under app here, so I need to use the at page directive, then quotation mark, then I want to access this under /to-do. So remember this now where you access this page art. So we are done with that. Then our title of our component. Then so at the to-do page to the nav what menu. This under what layout nav menu, you find the nav element. So in the component and add the following div in the element below by existing nav this. So we want now to add some, you see our application, we want to add our nav menu of to do on this signed menu here. And that's, you find it under what? Under this layout. So nav menu. if I click that nav menu and collapse this, so you can see we have only three: the home, the counter, and the weather. So I just need to copy this div here and add it just below this our menu there. So I will add it there, then click save to. So, and with that, I have added now a nav menu on our application here. So remember, these are object-oriented language. So once you want something, you need to compile your code again and run it so that you can be able to see some of changes we have made. So let me go back to my terminal, terminate the application, then I build again. So let me build, so .NET build. So it's building my project again. So to see whether I have some errors. For the first time, it might take some couple of seconds or minutes to build your project, depending on the file size of your project. Yeah, so I have no errors, then .NET run. Done. So you can see if I now go back and reload my project, you can see now I have an extra tab here, which is to do, and it's just having this H3, is it H3 or H1 element? Let me see on our code. So we have an H3, which is to do. So let me hurry up this. So let me go back to the documentation. So you can see this is what we have done. We have been able to add this tab there. Then we want to build a list to do items in our application. So, and where under the root folder, we need to have a .cs file where you define our variables. So that's a C# code. So I have to create this to do CS file under this what under this namespace. So let me click this. Then I want to under class. So paste to do item.cs. So okay. Then you make sure they are under the same root folder with the main class, which is the program.cs. So under that, to do item, you can see like we are using the same namespace. So under that, I want to add to these two variables, which is now the title of our to do item and a Boolean variable, which will now be checking whether is a item done or not done. So let me copy this, paste it here, and with that, then let's go back to our .razor. So I'm following the documentation. So our to do razor. So under this, under our code here, so we want to use now the to do items that we defined on our to do items here, this to do item class. So we want to use that on our component to have those to invoke a new to do item in our project. So we have now a private list where we are using now the generics to have our to do items. Then we have to do's. Then we're using the new key1 to instantiate a new to do item in this. Then under our at the top, we want to have an ordered list where now we'd be able to display our to do items. So I just need to copy that and have it there. So it's an ordered list, then we are looping for each. So we use the add character. Then for then each to do in to do's, we want to list it, the name of that, excuse me, the name of that item or the to do, which is now we're giving it the title, which we have defined it on this item.cs class, which is the string title. So the next is add to do item. So let's add some UI element for wanting to do. So remember, we have just what rendered the items. We don't have an input tag to be able to add some new item. So we use the input tag and a button. So we have these two, the input. I might decide to have them at the top or bottom, so wherever you want. So I want to use them here. So we have an input, then an add button. So we shall see this when we compile our code again. Then we'll remember the bind directive so that we can be able to track the new value of our input. Then we have to use now the @bind on our input so that we can be able to track and be able to clear whenever we are adding that item in our project. So what's the error? So the name to do does not exist. So we have not defined this variable. So we have to define it on our C# code here. So string new to do. We want to initialize it with an empty value, then always terminate your C# code to avoid errors. So you can see now we have this new to do. We are now binding it here so that we can be able to track every change of this input. And anytime we click and, we'll be able to clear this input and leave that as an empty value. Then we have to have an on-click function on the button. Remember this. So which is now be able to add a to do in our to do list. Then be able to reset our values of this input to empty string. So with that, now I want to have a function here and our C# code, which is now a function that is now returning nothing. So when you use the void, you are indicating like you don't want to return anything on this function. So under this function, we have an if statement, which is now checking the value of this new to do variable. So they should check whether if it's not null and it does not have new space, that means we have a new item. So we need to add that on our new to do item. So and we use the keyword and to add that item, and we want to specify the title to be that new item. Then to reset our new to do this to empty string, so that we can be able now with the help of this bind directive, we'll be able to reset that to an empty string. Then the rest is we need to have what? I think we are done with that. So we have been able to list the items. We have an input. Then we have a button to add. So you have not added an on-click functionality on our button. So on click, we want to add a new items to our these to-dos. Then so let me terminate, shut down my application and run it again. So that it can take the new changes. For some few seconds to build and compile and run the project. Yeah, the compilation is done and the project is being run. So I want to uh, refresh this. So let me do a refresh. And that is, we have now an input here and to do button. So if I want now to add a to-do list, maybe like now make a Blazor web app. Then when I click and to be able to display that item under that. So the next maybe what? Watch a movie. Watch a movie, then add that. So you can see now our to-do list is it's working. So one more feature to want, maybe like a checkbox to click and maybe to display how many items are not done. So we can do that as fast as possible under our documentation. So we have this directive here. So under checkbox under count incomplete to do items. So we want to update the list items to render an input of type checkbox. So under our page here. So here, this is where you are listing the list. So we want to have a checkbox around here. So just between the dot and the to do item. So that's what it's doing. So let me copy this and have it at the top. So it's an input of type checkbox. Then we remember to use the bind directive so that we can be able to check the it's done. Then we want to update H3 to show the count of the number of items that aren't complete when the it's done is false. So under our H1 here, so this is our H1. So here we want to display the number of incomplete items here. So I want to copy this code here and add it here on our title. So we have at to do's, then count is just checking the to do. If to do like to do we are negating. So if we add this exclamation before this, we are doing the opposite of this. So anything that is not done, so we want to do the count of those and display how many items are not done. And I think we are done with that. So we want to call that close check. We have the item there to take count of our not done items, then checkbox. And I think we are done. So let me run the project for one last time. See whether we have the new changes that we have added the type checkbox and the count and our yes. So the compilation is done. So let me refresh this. Yes, so let me, you can see by default it's 0 because we have 0 items. So the first one is watch movie. Watch movie. So let me add that. You can see we have that. I think this is a CSS problem. So it should be right here, but I'll fix that later. So another one is what? Maybe take coffee. You can see now we have two items that has not complete. Then I click check, you can see the change is we are only having one, like we are only having one item which is not done. And when I click check, we are having 0 items which are not done. And that is for our today's .NET Watch Party. So I hope you have joined and learned something about the Blazor framework, and I'm open to any question, any clarification as we wind up. Hello, any question up to there? Hello,
Yes, Dennis, maybe you
watu
can share
wamenyamaza
with
aje?
us share with us that link to that documentation because it's also good to redo it.
Okay, I'm doing that. I'll share the resource. Any question?
Deno,
Yes.
Denis, there's a friend of mine
Yes.
who had a problem running Visual Studio. Let me read the error.
Yes.
So she wanted to run the code for Visual Basic. It's a
Yeah.
.NET. Yes, Visual Basic. She's supposed to run it in a Visual Basic .NET environment. So she installed .NET and she's using Visual Studio
Yeah.
VS Code because Visual Studio refused to it's not compatible with her machine. So the
Yeah.
code is in she installed VS Code, but it's not running. It's telling her she does not have a debugger, and she has installed the C# dev kit and the C# dev kit and the C#
Yeah.
extension as well, but it's still saying it cannot compile the code.
So as he installed the .NET SDK, like the official .NET 9
Yeah,
SDK.
she used 8.
8. So what might be the problem? I think most probably like you might need to uninstall the dev kit, then install again. So it might be the problem with the caching in the VS Code. So sometimes VS Code behave weird. So let him try to install the extension and I install again. And if the error persists, we can try to see and figure out what the problem is.
Since C# has a compiler under .NET, right?
Yes, come again.
Or does C# use its own compiler under .NET, or do you need to install an extension in VS Code?
Once you install the dev kit on the VS Code, the dev kit, the C# dev kit, that's all. You don't need to install anything else.
So the dev kit comes with everything.
Yes.
So the problem is with the dev kit. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So she's up. Okay, I don't know if he or she supposed to write to use it to write VB code. Sindio, like that's what anatrai kutumia the
Anatumia Visual
language.
Basic.
So if kama tuko na .NET if kama ni .NET 8 there's no problem, and then nataka tu
Uh-huh.
kutumia VS Code, then it will work well. The dev kit itasaidia for introaje, like so that the VS Code can know the language that you're writing, it can improve your writing. So VS Code will always give you that good environment. Let's say if you want to type something like a class, it can give you that kind of a prediction thing so that you can have it. So I ensure talk on .NET install, and then it will be okay. But sasa akuwe pia na
Okay,
SDK
okay.
itamsaidia sana kuandika.
If it does not work, I'm sending her to Denis.
Okay, right.
All right.
Okay. Uh,
Thank you.
Any other question or clarification before we end the meeting in the next 2 or 3 minutes? All right, so I think we have no any other question. We have to end our session there. So this is the dev kit I'm talking about on VS Code. So you need to install this. You can see it helps you manage your code with Solution Explorer, like IDE itself, the Visual Studio, and test your code with the integrated test discovery and execution. So it's elevating your C# development experience wherever you like to develop on any platform, Windows, Mac, Linux. And that is, I don't think you can see like some of the requirement. You need to install the .NET SDK, which is now I was talking about the .NET 9 or the previous version, which is .NET 8. And without further ado, I wish to stop our session here. And I wish to thank you for everyone who have attended this meeting. And I hope you have learned something about Blazor. I'll share the documentation on the group chat. And I believe you'll be able to build something out of that. Uh, I know what to React. They are good in this, so you may try to explore the new framework, which is Blazor, and you can see how simple it is. Just HTML and CSS, and wrapping it with your C# code or logic. And thank you once again, and I hope to see you next week for .NET series. I think Tiffany will be the next, and he'll be able now to share some other features that comes with that came with the .NET 9. I believe so. Dear Tiffany.
Yeah, we have the final .NET session next week, Wednesday.
Yeah. So purpose to attend, and we learn something. So thank you once again, and have a good night. Thank you. Bye bye.